The Giants need a new shipment of bats. Not the torpedo bats, just bats with hits in them. That's next on Curveballs and Changeups, a baseball podcast straight out of Sacramento. I'm Steve Harmon, and this is a podcast for Giants fans and baseball fans in general. I played the game, once hit a grand slam home run in an over 30 baseball league, and I covered the Hum Baby Giants as a sports writer in the 1980s and early 90s. I've been a baseball fan since 1967 when the kid down the block introduced me and my brothers to the Giants. A note, I'm hosting separate episodes on the Giants and Age. You can find both on all the platforms that host podcasts. Speaking of Hum Baby Giants, I will have a Did You Know segment at the end, and it's a memory of the Hum Baby guru himself, Roger Craig, a little tie-in between the Giants and Tigers. First, the news. After Wednesday's game, manager Bob Melvin let slip that Camilo Doval was now the Giants' closer. It wasn't an announcement. He was asked by reporters why Ryan Walker had pitched with the Giants down 4-3, and he said point blank, Doval's going to do the closing now. Said he'd made the decision a few days ago. Of course, it won't matter if the Giants can never hand him a lead. The story of the day, the Giants continue a long-running theme, a weak offense. They got swept by the Detroit Tigers by scores of 3-1, 3-1, and 4-3. They got all of 21 hits and 96 at-bats in Detroit. That's a .219 batting average. They're so bad they let a guy with a 5.28 ERA hold them down to one hit in 5 innings in the series opener. That set the tone for a frustrating 3-game sweep. And the few opportunities they had, they were very impotent. The most recent failure in Wednesday's series finale, they had runners at second and third with no outs, a chance to tie the game at least. Down 4-3 in the 8th inning, Willie Adames reached on a catcher's interference. Woohoo! Adames contributed. Lamont Wade Jr. hit a looping single to left field that Adames did a nice job of racing around to third base on, and Wade doing a nice job of advancing to second on the throw. But then Giants manager Bob Melvin uses Patrick Bailey as a pinch hitter against a righty with a devastating changeup, which Bailey is so vulnerable to. Ed Bailey, of course, flies weakly out to left field, no chance to score. Some fans were saying third base coach Matt Williams should have sent Adames, maybe. Maybe you forced a bad throw. Maybe you should try anything to get the team going, but he didn't. And then Christian Koss, filling in at second base on this day, took 2 shots at a safety squeeze. Can anyone bunt anymore? Fouling both off before striking out, then Mikey Strzemski then grounded out, and that was that. This brings up a point. If the Giants just drop one reliever, go from 13 pitchers to 12, they could add a hitter who's good off the bench. A true pro as recently as Austin Slater, who knew how to come off the bench as a pinch hitter for clutch hits. There have been many, many instances of great older guys, maybe at the back end of their careers, who could just hit, and you'd take them off the bench. Rusty Staub was one of them. Manny Mota became one of the most proficient pinch hitters, and he was a scientist at just getting those little base hits that extended rallies or helped them out to win games. But the Giants just don't have that anymore, so he had to go to Patrick Bailey as a pinch hitter. So the Giants are now back to 6 games over 500 at 31-25. The Dodgers and Padres also lost, as did the Diamondbacks, so no movement in the NL West standings. San Francisco remains 3 games behind LA and 1 behind San Diego. Arizona is 4 back of the Giants. Melvin has tried tweaking the lineup a little bit, but has he gone far enough? With the bottom of the lineup so weak, I'm wondering if the Giants should bring Flores back to the 7 hole to give it some strength down there. Remember, that's where he started the year. That's where the Giants got a lot of production. Here's how I would do it at this point. I would go with Tyler Fitzgerald leading off, Jung-Hoo Lee hitting second, Elliot Ramos third, Matt Chapman cleanup, Yaz 5th, Adames 6th, Flores 7th, Wade 8th, Huff 9th. Just try it. And with Gerard Encarnacion on the men, the Giants could get an infusion of offense they desperately need, and you could put him right in the middle of that lineup. They're saying he could get back in time for the beginning of the series with the Padres on Monday. Until then, though, the Giants risk sending fans over the edge in frustration. The Giants are boring. They don't hit. And when they get on base, they're stationary. They need to put more runners in motion. They're starting to hit into more double plays. They're still around the middle of the pack with just 36 ground ball double play GIDPs. But it's happening more lately. They hit into 5 in the 3 games with the Tigers. They tried to break out the bunting stick, but that wasn't exactly the winning formula. But Wade bunted runners to second and third in the 4th inning of the 3rd game of the series. But the Giants had to call on weak hitters to cash in. Sam Huff and Christian Koss both struck out. A Smokey Burgess would have been nice to bring up right there. Then they tried that safety squeeze with Koss later, but he fouled off 2 before striking out. They had big days from the 3 hitters Wednesday. Ramos and Chapman, each with 3 hits, 2 doubles and a home run between them. And Wade had 2 hits, including a double to drive in a run. But the issue continues to be the Giants' failure to mount real threats. No rally momentum on this team. They get a 2-run homer and that's it. They get an RBI double, but leave that man stranded. Excuse me. I've got allergies now that have really hit hard here. Central offender here, Willy Adames. He's barely hitting above the Mendoza line with barely much more power than that weak hitting shortstop of the 70s, Mario Mendoza. You remember Mendoza. He's the guy for whom the line was named after. It's basically a guy who couldn't get off the interset. He hit under 204 times in his career and hit only 4 home runs in 9 years in the majors. But lifetime he hit 215, which is better than what Adames is hitting. Adames is now at 208. A full 1/3 of the way into the season and 216 at-bats with just 5 home runs and 25 ribbies. Bring back Johnny LeMaster. Back in 1983 at this time of the year, end of May, he was hitting 290 with 3 home runs. He ended up hitting 240 that year with 39 stolen bases. I'll take that. Adames was supposed to get the day off on Wednesday, but persuaded Melvin that he'd found something in his swing or approach that he was feeling good about. He said the same thing after he'd hit that 2-home-run game on May 4th, but since May 9th, he's hit 164, 11 hits and 67 at-bats. He got 2 hits Tuesday, both singles that didn't amount to much. And Wednesday, he went 0 for 2 with a walk, though he did have a productive out by moving a runner to third with no outs. But that's not what the Giants signed up for when they inked Adames to a 7-year, $182 million contract, moving runners to third with the attaboy productive outs. Interesting. Hitting coach Pat Burrell defended Adames, saying we should be patient with him. He's trying hard for his new team, etc. That seemed to remind fans that they actually had a scapegoat. Pat Burrell. A lot of social media anger directed at Pat the Bat this week. Some are saying the Giants need someone who can teach players bat-to-ball skills instead of a guy who made his career on the long ball. Either way, Adames is suffering from a big swing and either no contact or bad contact. He hit into a big double play in the first game of the series with the Tigers. And what about Patrick Bailey? Here's how bad he's going. Lamont Wade Jr. is now 3 points behind him in batting average. Wade is now hitting 171. Bailey's at 174. Wade started May hitting 123. So that's a 48-point hike to his batting average, hitting 233 in May. Bailey is hitting 193 in May and hasn't seen the other side of the Mendoza line since April 11th. That's a month and a half right there. Why does Melvin pinch hit Bailey for Huff? He just can't resist a lefty-righty matchup, even when it's a changeup maestro like the Tigers' Tommy Kahnle, which Bailey is especially vulnerable to. Bailey, of course, failed to get a runner in from third with less than 2 outs, flying out weakly and not deep enough for a sacrifice fly. By the way, Sam Huff is hitting 46 points higher than Bailey. Just stick with him. Either way, Wade and Bailey have been big empties in the lineup, and you mix in Adames' 208 batting average, and you can see why the Giants are so anemic. But even earlier heroes have gone cold. Jung-Hoo Lee is hitting 222 in May. That's 22 hits and 98 at-bats, with only a 267 on base. He's now hitting 276 after sitting at 324 at the end of April. Mike Yastrzemski is hitting 226 in May, 19 hits and 84 at-bats, with a 323 on base. He's dropped from 284 to 251. In his 10 games since returning from the IL on May 16th, Tyler Fitzgerald has hit 206, his overall batting average dropping to 261. Matt Chapman's numbers are going in a better direction. He's now at 224 after being at 198 at the end of April. So in May, he has hit 256, which isn't all that great, but when it comes to the Giants, stands out. Here's a crazy stat. The Giants are hitting only 211 as a team on the road, second worst in the major leagues. You figure that once you get out of the home confines, the ballparks are more hitter friendly and they do better, but they don't. At home, the Giants are hitting .255. Overall, they're one of the worst at .230. Only 6 teams are worse. The Cleveland Guardians, the Anaheim Angels, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Texas Rangers, Chicago White Sox, and Colorado Rockies. They're also boring. We thought they'd be more aggressive on the base paths, but they've turned out to be a station-to-station team. They have 26 stolen bases. 21 of those came in April, only 5 in May. Overall, 26 stolen bases is 4th lowest in all of the big leagues. They had a chance to run a few times in the series with Wilmer Flores up, try to stay out of the double play, but they didn't, and he grounded into 2 double plays on Wednesday. Though one of them they did have Ramos in motion. Flores has now hit into 8 double plays, tied for 3rd most in the National League, 4th in the majors. The Giants also don't slug. They're 23rd best in slugging at .373. I mean, it's one thing to not hit home runs, but they're not getting doubles or triples either. They also don't score early. The first inning seems to be a concession to opponents. They just do not score in the first inning. They're the 3rd worst hitting team in the first inning. They're hitting .211 with a .289 on-base percentage in the first inning. Only the Pirates and Rockies are worse. They've played 56 games and have had 43 hits in the first inning, scoring only 22 runs. Got to do better to set the tone. One problem I've noticed, and it's a long-running issue, the Giants are guessing so much that they pass up on pitches that most hitters would salivate over. Fastballs down the middle. They're 25th in the major leagues out of 30 on first pitch batting average, hitting only .312. The top 10 teams are hitting .355 or more. But there's no stat that I found that shows how many first pitch fastballs down the middle they've taken. That makes it worse. Wednesday in the first inning alone, Ramos and Jung-Hoo Lee took fastballs right down the middle for strike 1. Ramos falls behind 0-2, winds up striking out on a full count. Fastball up. That's a vulnerability for him. Lee then takes a fastball right down the middle on the first pitch, and he ends up flying out on a pitch that was difficult to handle. Chapman also took the first pitch fastball down the middle in the second inning, but he did get the count to his favor and got a double, later scoring on Wade's RBI double. But the problem is that even when they do work the count mostly to their favor, they blow it. How many times do you see Giants hitters with favorable counts but failing to take advantage? The Giants are 25th best, 5th worst, in hitting with a 3-1 count. They hit only .270, and they're only one of 3 teams without a home run on a 3-1 count. Tyler Fitzgerald exemplified this in Game 2 of that series with the Tigers. He gets a fastball down the middle on a 3-1 count. This is the second inning of Game 2. But he's got this huge shoulder dip. It's like he's trying to hit with power. And he just pops out to right field. Just a weak pop-up because he's not hitting down on the ball, which he told everybody he planned to do a while ago. And here's some other examples. Bailey, he's known for getting great pitches to hit and fouling them off and then striking out. Matos had the same issue in Game 2. 2 fastballs right down the middle. He fouls them off. Now, he builds that at-bat into a 9-pitch at-bat, but he ends up hitting a weak ground ball. But if he gets a hold of one of those first 2 fastballs, it's moot. Chapman takes a fastball down the middle on a 1-0 pitch, winds up flying out on a slider later in the count. Even if you're looking for a slider, should that mean you pass up the best pitch you'll see earlier? I mean, if you're looking for a slider, but you should have it in the back of your mind that you could get a cookie, and when you get one, take it. Game 1, San Francisco is down 3-1 at the top of the 6th. Flores just came through with an RBI base hit, Adames up. He takes a first pitch fastball right down the middle. Then he swings wildly at a slider down and away, hits into a 6-3 double play to end the threat. Then into the 9th inning of the same game, Adames swings wildly at the first pitch slider, like he told himself, I'm going to swing at the first pitch now. But he doesn't look for a fastball, or he's looking for a fastball, but doesn't recognize a slider, and he grounds out weakly. I mean, you got to be smart about it. Wade takes a fastball down the middle for strike 1. This is sometime during the series. Swings at a pitch out of the zone, then is able to work the count full, but then takes a fastball at the knees for a called third strike. It goes over and over and over again. The Giants just failing to capitalize on pitches they should be ripping. Sean Estes in a postgame show during the series made a good point on all this. Other teams are scouting the Giants, seeing the Giants aren't swinging early, so they attack the zone early, and suddenly you're behind the count. So many at-bats like this. Back on the Bailey beat. How many times have you heard, that's a called third strike, even when Bailey dropped the ball? And that just happens so much. I know he's trying to frame the pitch, but have a clean exchange. But I want to look at something more subtle with Bailey. Here's an example of the kind of thing that doesn't show up in the box scores or even in analytic stats and is somehow overlooked. Pitch selection. I assume that Bailey was calling the game with Birdsong on the mound in the first game of the series. With 2 outs in the 4th inning of that first game, runners at first and second, Birdsong gets ahead of Tigers catcher Dylan Dingler, 0-2 on 2 fastballs right down the middle. Dingler takes both pitches. To me, he's looking off speed. So what does Bailey do? He calls a curve that Dingler blisters to left field for an RBI single to give the Tigers a 1-0 lead. I mean, if you are watching the hitter and paying attention to what he's doing, you try to counter that. So if he's taking those fastballs down the middle, he's obviously looking for something else. So go with a fastball, maybe a fastball in. And, just be smart about it. Sometimes Bailey just comes off as a Southern country hayseed who's more of a checker player than a chess player. Then for a bonus on the throw to the plate on that play that Dingler had the base hit, Bailey does his dumb little swipe tag thing before even catching the ball. The throw skips by him and the run scores. If he catches it, you probably have the out and the score remains tied at 0-0. That wasn't the only 0-2 pitch the Giants gave up for a hit. Giants lefty Eric Miller in relief got ahead of the Tigers left-hander Riley Green with an 0-2 count with the bases loaded with 1 out. The slider he throws catches too much of the plate. Riley's able to get enough on it with a soft line drive, only 73 miles an hour for a 2-run single. And, it was a good pitch, but not good enough. You got to get out of the strike zone. Not way out of the strike zone. You got to make it competitive, but you can't throw a pitch that is hittable, and he did. And, of course, because the Giants' offense is so weak, that was enough for the Tigers. With the way the Giants' hitting is going, there's no guarantee they will get anything better against the Marlins. There's some tough matchups in the series coming up. Game 1, Kyle Harrison will go up against Cal Quantrill. Remember, he's the guy just a couple starts ago who authored the Major League's only immaculate inning this year. Harrison's coming off his first start since joining the rotation. He went 4 innings, 2 earned runs, and a 3-0 loss to the Nationals earlier this week, hoping he has a little more in the tank for this one. Cal Quantrill, he only went 3 1/3 innings in his last start, only 46 pitches, gave up only 1 run on 3 hits, but according to reports, the manager thought that he was getting hit too hard at that point and went straight to the bullpen. So a short fuse over there on the Marlins side, apparently. In a previous start, Quantrill only gave up 1 earned run in 5 innings on 85 pitches, including that immaculate inning. So he is no pushover, but apparently the Marlins manager has a short leash on him. Game 2, it'll be Robbie Ray against Edward Cabrera. Looks like a one-sided blowout. Robbie Ray 7-0 with a 2.56. This will be Ray's 6th start in May. He's 4-0 already. He's given up only 5 earned runs in 32 innings. That's a 1.40 ERA. He should be pitcher of the month. And then Cabrera, his numbers don't look that great at all. 1-1 with a 4.73 ERA, but he struck out 10 in 5 2/3 against the Angels in his last start. No runs on 3 hits. And in May, he has a 2.53 ERA in 21 1/3 innings, struck out 23 and walked only 5. So he's going strong, and the way the Giants hitters are going, he could be looking like Cy Young himself. And in Game 3, Hayden Birdsong will go up against left-handed pitcher Ryan Weathers. Yes, I said it. The Giants have to face a left-handed pitcher to end the road trip. Birdsong has only 2 starts since joining the rotation and has only gone 9 1/3 innings over those 2 starts. Gave up 3 earned runs, 10 hits, struck out 10, walked 2. though in his last start he gave up 3 earned runs in 4 1/3 innings. So he'll be looking to stretch it out a little bit more too. In his last start in Detroit, he talked about being tired after 4 innings. And that was one of the things I worried about by inserting Hayden Birdsong into the rotation coming out of the bullpen all season long. I was hoping the Giants might send him down to Sacramento to stretch him out, to build him up, and then bring him back when he's ready to go 5, 6, 7 innings. But the Giants decided to go straight with him out of the bullpen, and that meant that he was going to be a short-termer in his starts, at least to start his season. And then the Giants go up against the left-hander Ryan Weathers, and he's only made 3 starts this year. He was injured until May 14th. And he's done very well, 15 2/3 innings, only a 1.15 ERA. He held the Cubs, one of the top hitting teams in the major leagues, to 2 earned runs in 10 innings. So the first 2 pitchers seem to be putting things together, and the third is a lefty who's been effective since returning from injury. And, the Giants just don't hit lefties. They hit .219 against them. That's 6th worst in the major leagues. All right, on to my Did You Know segment, tying together the Giants and Tigers, who won't meet again until next year. So did you know back in the day I had a daily press pass and covered the Giants as much as I could as a young sports writer, mostly on my own time over the weekends. Sometimes my editor, Chuck Barney, would assign us games during the week, so I'd lug our heavy TRS-80 portable computer into the press box, type up my story on the liquid crystal display, and send the stories on deadline back to the newsroom by way of the phone coupler. You would connect the connections of the computer with a phone modem and wait for the screeching sound of electronics connecting your phone line to indicate your story was on its way to the mainframe back in the newsroom. Highly stressful. If you got it on the second or third try, you were doing pretty good. When it failed to connect, and you tried 3 or 4 times, and the frustrations mounted between you and your editor on the line, you had to go old school and call in your story to that editor or fellow reporter who may or may not miss something in the translation. I didn't realize it then, but we were part of the pioneering class of journalists who are helping usher in our modern-day online connectivity. This was in the mid to late 80s and early 90s, in the era of Will Clark and Kevin Mitchell and Jeffrey Leonard and, yes, Roger Craig. I was one of the many faces with a notepad the Giants would see in the clubhouse. I actually was in a photo in Sports Illustrated as part of a scrum interviewing Jose Canseco across the bay in 1990. I had long one-on-one interviews with Clark about hitting, with Kevin Mitchell about whether he would one day hit out of the middle of the lineup. He was hitting 2 to start with. He would. And once I spoke with Mike Lacoste about pitching. He didn't like that I was questioning his pitch selection and asked, "Did you ever pitch?" I said yes in high school, and that seemed to bring down his defenses. Ball players hate it when non-athletic reporters ask stupid questions, but if you show that you've had some semblance of playing history, then they respect you a little more. I also some of the greats who had come through that clubhouse, old friends of Roger Craig's like Don Larson. And that's one that sticks out because, he's the only pitcher to throw a perfect game of the World Series, and here he was hanging out with Roger Craig. And, of course, Willie Mays would be a constant presence in that clubhouse. In the final weekend of the 1987 season, the Giants had already clinched the National League West. And after they beat the Braves that Saturday afternoon I was there, we all went into Roger Craig's office. He held his hand up, shushing reporters. He was watching a game on TV. It was between the Tigers and Blue Jays, who were still battling it out for the AL East title. He was rooting for the Tigers. He said, "I wouldn't mind playing them later on," he joked. Remember, the Tigers were his old team. He'd brought his hum-baby attitude from the Tigers. He was Sparky Anderson's pitching coach when the Tigers won the 1984 World Series. Huge ties to that organization. That's where Bob Melvin got his start. And Melvin was a favorite of Craig's, who brought him over to the Giants. Melvin hit 11 home runs as a backup catcher in that 1987 NL West Championship season. Neither team would make it into the 1987 World Series, unfortunately. The Giants lost to the Cardinals, and the Tigers lost to the Twins. So Craig never got his reunion series. But I was witness to one moment that exemplified the spirit of Roger Craig. I was in the middle of talking with Chris Brown. This is in 1986. He's a hard-hitting right-handed hitter who was so clutch for the Giants that year in 86. He hit .317, and that was before he got traded for Kevin Mitchell in the middle of 1987. Brown had gotten the game-winning hit that day, and I was talking to him, and Craig came walking up toward us, playfully sidling up to Brown by his locker, and said in his gravelly voice, just simply said, baby. That's all he had to say, along with an impish grin. Chris Brown knew that was Roger Craig's special way of binding his players to the love he had for the game. All right, that's all I have for today. Thank you for tuning into Sacramento's Curveballs and Changeups with me, your host, Steve Harmon. You can find Sacramento's best baseball podcast on Apple Tunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Odyssey, the podcast app, and wherever else you can listen to podcasts. Please hit the subscribe button so you can get notified when my next podcast is up. I'm also on Twitter, or what some call X, and Threads, and post my episodes there. If you see it there, please retweet or repost and tell your friends. It would be great to grow our baseball-loving community. All right, until next time, lay off the slider, low and away.